Okay? So today we're going to be talking about fractions, and I know that fractions is not new to any of you all because fractions is a standard that we covered in fourth grade. So some of the things that you would have done in fourth grade would be like, what is a fraction? What is a numerator? What is a denominator? So how many of you all can tell me what you remember from doing fractions in fourth grade? What is a fraction? And we know that fraction is something that deals with a whole or something that you're taking something from. So I would say a fraction is the division of the numerator by the denominator. That's another way of putting it. When you talk about fractions, you think about two things. You think about the numerator and the denominator. So a fraction, you have, let's take, for example, maybe a pizza. And out of a pizza, the pizza is the whole, and out of a pizza, you're going to take a part. So the numerator tells you the fraction that you are taking from the whole. So we have here our little pizza game. And let me start by asking a question. If I have a pizza, what would you prefer? Would you prefer a quarter of the pizza or a half of the pizza? And some people, I heard somebody say a half. Who's going to say a quarter? Somebody said a quarter. And why did you say a quarter? And I would presume you're saying a quarter because the number 4 is bigger than the number 2. Well, that's the thing with fractions. With fractions, the bigger the number, the smaller the piece. So I'm sad to tell those of you all who chose the bigger bottom number, you would have gotten a smaller piece of the pie. Example. So we have an entire pizza here, and each of you all will have an opportunity to come see the pizza and work with the pizza. So, and we are even going to do a little game with make your own pizza. So like I was saying, this is an entire pizza, and that will represent your denominator. The denominator tells you what the whole is made out of. And a part of the pizza is going to tell, that's your numerator. That is the part of the whole. There's a part that you're taking out. So let's look again at the sizes of the pizza. This is 1/10. And this is 1/4, a quarter of the pizza, and 1/10 of the pizza. So those of you all who chose the larger bottom number, as I said, the larger the bottom number, the smaller the size. So you have a quarter of the pizza, you have 1/10 of the pizza. All right. So let's go back now, and we will say a fraction. You have the numerator and you have the denominator. So the numerator is going to tell you how much of the whole, what part of the fraction we are speaking about. The numerator is part of the whole, and the whole is the denominator. The denominator represents the whole. Let's practice writing some fractions, and then we are going to model what they look like. So that's another way of looking at it. You can use your manipulators. So we have here, who can tell me what this is? It's 1 whole. And again, we can see you have 2 halves that make up a whole. And the trick to getting it equivalent, that's another vocabulary we're going to use, equivalent. The trick to having it equivalent is to make sure it's lined up, properly lined up. So you can see that these two are equivalent. You have the whole, and another way of looking at it is 2 halves. So 2 halves make the whole. What else can we say is equivalent to these? You have, I asked just now, who would prefer a third of the pizza as compared to a quarter of the pizza? Again, the larger the bottom number, the smaller the size. So we can use the thirds, and you can see, although we are saying 1/3, it's still equivalent to a whole. So we have the whole pizza, and it's broken up into 3 parts. And again, the trick to making sure that it's equivalent, that is properly lined up. So you can even compare, and that's another vocabulary term we're going to work on and learn about comparing fractions. You have equivalent fractions. And here you have a third, which is the same as the whole. So that's another way. So you have the thirds. And again, just like we looked at the pizza, which would you prefer? A half of the pizza or a third of the pizza? And again, for those of you who said you want the third because the bottom number is bigger, it's not. So you have a third as compared to a half. And if you look at it, you can see definitely the half is bigger than the third. So what this means in fractions is that you are dividing the whole into 3 pieces, or you're dividing the whole into 2 pieces. And that is what fractions are all about. How much you are dividing the entire thing. So the denominator will tell you how many pieces it's divided into, and the numerator will tell you how many pieces you are taking out of the whole. So if you have, for example, we may say 2/4. So 2/4 is telling me we have 2 pieces out of 4. So 2 pieces out of a total of 4. Let's assume we have 4 sandwiches, and you have 3 persons that have to get parts of the 4 sandwiches. So you're going to have 4 sandwiches. And you have 3 people. How are we going to divide that into 3 persons? We are going to divide this into thirds, because you have 4 sandwiches, and each is going to get a third because you have 3 people. And that's how you're going to divide. So each person is going to get 1, and that's a whole. An entire 3 people, they're going to get 1 and a third. Okay, so we worked on the pizza game, and I chose the pizza because we can all identify with the pizza. So now we know what is a fraction. A fraction is a part out of a whole, and as you can see, the pizza is separated into different parts, but it's all making up the whole, the entire pizza. Although it's separated, its parts broken up. And this is still going to be an entire pizza. So fractions is all about how many parts out of the whole. So this is 1/10 out of the entire pizza, which will mean the pizza, the 10, is showing you it's made out of 10 pieces. And it's 1 part out of 10. So that's where your numerator and your denominator comes in. So you have the numerator. Please go ahead. If you need to use the bathroom, please go ahead. Why? Oh boy. So as we said, each will get a third. So it's going to be 4 on the top, 3 on the bottom, because you have 4 total, 1, 2, 3, 4, then divided by 3 persons. So 4 pieces out of 3. All right, so that's the introduction to fractions. Do you think you understand what fractions are about? So when you hear fractions, you should always think it's a whole, and then it's part out of that whole. And of course, the whole, you have the numerator and the denominator. So the top is the numerator and the bottom is the denominator. The numerator tells you how many pieces we are talking about, and normally you're going to see it's the whole, and the numerator is normally the shaded part. So the numerator tells us how many parts shaded out of the entire denominator. We are going to venture in from this point into adding, subtracting, multiplying, even dividing fractions in 5th grade. So when you add or you subtract fractions, can we just say 1/4 add 1/3 is what? Most students would say, okay, 1/4 add 1/3 is probably they're going to add the top 2 and then they're going to add the bottom 2. So 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 2 7s. No, when we are adding fractions or subtracting fractions, you have to ensure that the denominators are common, where you have to have the same number at the bottom. So you never add or subtract with unlike denominators. And in order for us to have like denominators, you must do something called least common denominator, or the least common factor, where you're going to find a number that is common to both denominators. And again, we did that's a 4th grade standard that you would have done. Does everybody know how we find least common factors or least common denominator? Yes, where you would do factorization. And let's do an example. I'm not going to go all the way back into that because you all said you understand how we get the least common multiple or the least common denominator. So for example, if we have, let's get an easy one. Let's do some benchmark figures. Maybe a 2 and a 4. And you remember in 4th grade you would have drawn the factorization table. But I'm going to show you, just to refresh your memory, a 2 and a 4. What is the least common denominator? So you're going to find factors that a 2 is divisible by, or something that can go in. So let's go with 2, 4, 6, 8, right? And you keep going. The 4, 4, 8, 12. You all remember that? Great. So you all remember it. And that's how you're going to find your common multiple. Now, what number is common to both the 2 and the 4? If you look at your table, you're going to see, okay, it's not the 2, that's too low, it's the 4. So then you kind of draw and you know that the least common multiple between the 2 and the 4 is the 4. And that's how you come up with the least common multiple. So let's assume we are going to add a fraction, let's say 2/4 and 3 let's say 3/8. What do we do? Do we just say 3 plus 2 is 5 and 4 plus 8 is 12? No. What did we just say? We have to find the least common multiple. And again, let's do what we just did. Do a little T-chart table type thing, and you're going to find 4. You start off with 4, 8, 12, and you keep going, and then you're going to start with 8, 2 8 so 16, and you keep going. One time I can see the common multiple between the both of them is 8. So now, how do we get to put these to make it common? Good question, Malachi. So let's see. So we already have an 8 here. Would we want to change that? No, because we already have an 8. This is the one we will want to change to become common like the 8. So now we're going to have to stop and think, go back to our multiplication facts. How can we change the 4 to an 8? Excellent, we multiply by 2. And the rule with fractions is whatever you do to the denominator, you must do to the numerator. So if we multiplied the denominator by 2, we have to multiply the numerator by 2. So now we will rewrite it, and you can say 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, 2 multiplied by 4 is 8, and this remained because you had that already, and that remains 3/8. Now we can add, and when you are doing addition and subtraction, you have to always come up with a common multiple, and coming up with a common multiple creates an avenue for you to get the most common occurrences out of that fraction. So now we can add across the board. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, and the denominator never changes. And the answer is 7/8. And we will do the same thing for subtraction. When we get to multiplication and division, that is going to be slightly different, but we will spend some time on addition and subtraction first before we venture on to multiplication and division. So let's take a subtraction problem. So let's say you have 4/6, subtract, let's say 2/3, and I am using 2/3 subtract 4/6, and I'm using small numbers so that you all can get accustomed to what's going on and get a better understanding. So what's the first step we do? That's right, you find the least common multiple. And how do we find the least common multiple? You have numerous ways of doing it. We did it factorization, where you draw your bubbles. That was in 4th grade. But in 5th grade, for ease, you list the two of them. 3, 6. And let's start off. You have 3, good, 6, 9, and so on. And then 6, 12, and so on. So one time you see the common multiple between both of them is 6. How do we change this to become a 6? We already have 6 here. So now you want to change this one. What do we do for this to become a 6? You ask yourself, what can we multiply by to get this to turn into a 6? So, good. 2. He said 2. July said 2. Awesome, July. So 3 multiplied by 2 is 6. And 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. Now we'll rewrite that. You're going to get 4/6 subtract 4/6. And that's, probably I should not have used that example, but it's 0, which is highly likely, is 0/6, right? Which would that be from? Which is, I should have used different numbers in the numerator. I didn't realize what I was doing. But you all got the gist of creating common denominators. Let's do one with different, having to change both of them. Let's see. See an example that the book has, if there's an example in here that I can use quickly. So we're going to add 2. Hello, have a seat, sir. So that everyone understand what a fraction so far, and always remember the pizza. Easy peasy. Just remember that pizza, and it's the whole pizza being divided into pieces. Let's try again. 2/4 add 6/12 or 9/12. Can we just go ahead and add? Good job. No. What do we have to do? We have to make sure that we get common denominators. 4 and 12. Again, you're going to come across here. Step 1. You list your 4. You list your 12. And you start going looking for factors that are divisible by 4. 4, 8, 12, and you keep going. 12, one time you see the common denominator is 12, so don't need to go on. Why did I do that again? So what do we do? Good, multiply by 3. And as we said, whatever you do to the top, you do to the bottom. Multiply by 3. And I was trying to get a different fraction that we have to multiply. Okay, so it's time for lunch. Does everybody understand? Any questions? Okay, so you know the fraction, it's numerator by denominator, part of a whole. All right, good. So you understand that part. So you know that the denominator is telling you how much the entire thing is out of, and the numerator is telling you how much is being used out of the whole. Just remember that you always have the entire pie or the entire pizza or the entire number, and the numerator will always tell you how much we are talking about out of the whole. Yes, any questions? Okay, so tomorrow we will practice on some word problems. And can you turn to your book, and we are going to practice on page 165, numbers 2 and 3. Thank you guys.